Good evening, namaskar, and welcome to this 3.0 edition of the Final Table series. I'm Peter Abraham, and we are about to start off the final table of one of the most anticipated marquee events of this FTS. Well, the final table of the 1 crore guaranteed high roller tournament is going to crown its champion today. But before that, let's find out what's going on in the 30 lakh guaranteed FTS leaderboard because we're just 3 days away from finding who is going to be topping this particular leaderboard. Let's have a look at the 10 players who currently are on that leaderboard. Right up top, we've got Vinay Rajpal playing as Beep Beep Amajeep, and he's got a little over 4,016 points. Next up, we've got Shashank Desai as Reconnecting, and he has 3,583 points. In third place, Abhijit Kumar playing as the Supreme One has got 3,240 points. And then you've got Ashish Kumar, Notorious Convict 1 with 3,054 points. Fifth place belongs to Suraj Todi, who was, remember, at the bottom of this list of 10 when he started the final table yesterday, but a good finish in that one got him points, and now he's in the middle of this leaderboard on fifth place. Suraj plays as Got No Change 31, and now he's got 3,022 points on this leaderboard. Sixth place belongs to Ram Kakkad, playing as Johnny Runner. He's got 3,017 points. Bhanu Prakash, playing as Spectre on these virtual felts of Spartan Poker, has got 2,957 points. And the bottom three haven't changed by all that much. Arjanveer Singh Chadda, playing as Bazinga in 8th place for 2,680 points. Anmol Agarwal as Bull Slayer, having 2,644 points. And in 10th position on the FTS leaderboard at the moment, at least, is Zima Blue. That's Mithun Mahesh with 2,503 points. Now, let's take a look at today's featured table. It's the High Roller, event number 23 here at the FTS. This is a 6-max table. Remember, all of the previous tables we've been seeing are 8-max, but this one is 6-max because that's traditionally the format that these high rollers are played in. 1 crore is the guarantee, and a buy-in of 88,000 got you a seat into this tournament. We had 120 entries, and with this kind of a buy-in, you can expect the cream of the cream to be playing in this particular event. The winner is, of course, going to stake his or her claim. Well, I think it's a his only because it's an all-male final table. And so he, whoever that he is, eventually will stake claim to that top prize of 25.55 lakh rupees, along with the 18-karat gold medallion, a gift hamper from Spartan Poker, of course. And there's plenty of points to play for in this particular event because of that FTS leaderboard as well. So let's take a look at the payouts. Like I mentioned, 25.5 lakhs for the first place finisher. Second place will get 17.6 lakhs. Third place, 11.55 lakhs. Fourth place, 9.35 lakhs. Fifth gets 7.55 lakhs. Sixth, 5.9 lakhs. Seventh, 2.5 lakhs, I believe. And 8th gets 1.76 lakhs. So that's the way all of these payouts will look at the end of this final table. Now, talking about winnings and medallions reminds us, of course, of the shiny folks who have joined us in this commentary book over the course of the last couple of days. First up, we've got, of course, Sam Razavi. And I think the next time we should have some special medallions made just for these commentators. What do you think, Sam? You're on mute, Sam. I think we're facing some audio issues with Sam Razavi. All right, we'll just sort that out with Sam. In the meantime, though, our second commentator who's been joining us over the course of these live streams is, of course, Poker Wizard Kevin McPhee. Let's hear it from the wizard himself, what he thinks of this particular final table. I think, Kevin, we should expect a fair amount of play on this particular final table, given that it's a high roller and therefore, deeper stacks and much more, shall we say, conservative play?
Well, I mean, in these 6-max tournaments, you're going to have the best players coming out for these high roller 6-max ones, and there's really nowhere for the nits to hide. You know, the blinds come around a lot faster. You're kind of forcing the action a lot more. And I think this table can be pretty interesting because really we have KasolHeights, Vivek Singh coming in with 117 big blinds, nearly half the chips in play. And we also have a familiar face in Denoy, who just made a final table, I believe, yesterday. And then Sid Karya playing under Ari Triviani, who is our FTS 2.0 main event winner last time around back in March earlier this year. And Sid is also one of my teammates from the PSL, so I know I'm not supposed to have a rooting interest, but I will definitely be rooting for him, one of the nicest guys and a very talented poker player, but coming in as the short stack with only 10 big blinds, so he'll have some work to do.
Yep. And as Kevin mentioned, you know, these are familiar names now, of course, even to our international commentators, and not only because of their connection via leagues like the PSL, but also, of course, seeing these players battle it out on these virtual felts gives us an idea of just exactly the kind of talent that exists in this country. And since he's already trying to, as he's already given you an inkling of who the players are, let's take a look at that full list of players. I think we're still looking at getting Sam's audio issues sorted out, but I'm sure we'll get that rectified very, very shortly. In the meantime, here is the player info for the high roller final table. First up, as Kevin mentioned, Vivek Singh playing as KasolHeights. The theme throughout this series of FTS is quite flora and herb related, and so we have one more in KasolHeights playing in this final table. He's, of course, won the millionaire on Spartan Poker for just under 20 lakhs in May 2021. And of course, many, many other featured titles under his belt. 117 big blinds is what Vivek Singh has at this final table. That's a chip count of just over 2.8 million. And that's a huge lead between him and the second place person in chips who's got 52 big blinds. That's Manish Lakhotia playing as the Kid. And while he says he hasn't won anything major yet, he did take home third place in WPT India's main event for 25 lakhs a few years ago. And he's got a bunch of these daily feature tournament titles across various poker platforms. So certainly a modest player is Manish Lakhotia about his achievements, but he'll certainly be looking to pull the trigger and claim the title on this final table. 52 big blinds, that's a stack of 1.24 million in chips, and that puts him second on the counts. Third is Piyush Singhvi playing as Daniel 0617. And we have limited information about this particular player, other than the fact that, of course, he has several six-figure cashes online. 35 big blinds, that's 833,000 is what Piyush Singhvi has. And that puts him in third place on the chip count. Arun Kumar Singh, as Kevin mentioned earlier, who plays as Denoy. We saw him make a couple of appearances. In fact, this is his third marquee final table of the series. So we are very, very familiar with the way he plays. And we've been very impressed with the way he's played as well. Second in the FTS 3.0 Friday Special for 6.19 lakhs. And sixth in the FTS 3.0 Big Game for 3.16 lakhs. So he's in really, really good form. And making his third final table means that that run of his is pretty good. And they say when the going is good, you got to cash in, and that's certainly what Arun Kumar Singh is doing. 20 big blinds, though, bit of a challenging stack behind him. 480,000 in chips is what he's got. And it's not a lot, but it's enough to work with. Apratim Sharma is next, playing as Checkmate. This 28-year-old won the GPS main event on Spartan Poker for 34.5 lakh rupees exactly a year ago, in fact. And he also finished sixth in that WPT India main event on Adda 52 for 9.11 lakhs. 372,000 in chips, that's 16 big blinds for Apratim Sharma. Last but not the least, on this six-handed final table is the slightly biased for player. That's biased from Kevin McPhee's side, of course. Siddharth Karya playing as Ari Tribiani. And he is, of course, a very, very accomplished player. The short stack on this table, though, with just 10 big blinds, 249,000 in chips. So he's got a fair amount of work to do. But Siddharth certainly not short of experience. He won the FTS 2.0 main event in March 2021, 32 lakhs there. He won the FTS Headhunter in November 2020, second in the PPL main event on Pokerbazi, and won the Poker Sports League event with the Goan Nuts, where, of course, Kevin McPhee was his teammate. Many, many more titles, third in the BPT Highroller. And of course, we did feature him on Gutshot Magazine's cover not too long ago. So Siddharth Karia rounding off the 6-max table here at the Highroller. And he's got some work to do for sure. But I think no shortage of talent at this final table. I believe we have managed to figure out Sam Razavi's audio issue. Sam, I think there's something to be said with... I think when medallions and Sam come in the same sentence, there's a shift in the force.
Am I okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Loud and clear.
Yeah, I do believe Sid Karia was the one that issued that dancing challenge for me. So I've tried my best to escape from the stream today, just in case it's brought up again. But alas, I was dragged back into the ether. So sorry about those technical issues. But yeah, as you guys have already introduced this final table. But yeah, it's unlike in the past where I said I'm expecting to see a bit of cagey play here, or it's going to drag on for some time. I really think that this is going to be a really fast-paced, action-packed final. KasolHeights nearing on half the chips in play, but if anyone can do it from the short stack, Sid can do it. So it should be an exciting table to watch.
Yep, like we've mentioned, some really, really talented players at this final table. And I believe we are ready to get in on the action. So let's go to the table now. And starting things off, KasolHeights, the rich get apparently richer. Well, not just yet, but starts off with a nice set of cards there. Pocket Queens for KasolHeights. That's Vivek Singh.
Yeah, Denoy is certainly going to be interested in playing the 10-9 suited on the button with about 20 big blinds, and he's going to be faced with maximum resistance, queens waking up in the small blinds.
Yeah, even with that shorter stack, with the blinds being at 1224, it's not a bad place for him to try and take a stab at this with those nice suited connectors. Vivek Singh, I beg your pardon, is pretty much just gauging what he wants to put out there with those queens. I don't know.
And I guess the real question is, does he put in a normal 3-bet or just go all in? And I think really either one is fine here. I don't think your opponents are going to be flat calling you too much. So 3-bet's going to work just fine. It also allows Daniel to maybe 4-bet shove a little bit lighter than he would be calling off. So KasolHeights does go with the 3-bet on the smaller side, and Denoy with a quick fold there.
Well, a very staid start to the proceedings, shall we say. Well, maybe I think Sam's done the commentator's curse there, saying it's going to be a fast table, and the action in that first hand certainly seems to feel like it's going to be a bit slower than usual. But hey, we never know. At the moment, though, pocket deuces, again, another pocket pair for KasolHeights, but this time he should be getting some action from at least one player at this table.
Yeah, I mean, Sid's definitely going to shove here with the ace-queen. I doubt KasolHeights is going to be too thrilled with the deuces once Sid gets this in as well. So,
yeah, it's a tough spot here for Denoy. I mean, you don't really love calling it off with king high here, but this is a pretty hand, king queen suited, and you're facing only a 10 big blind reshove. So pretty tough spot, but this is for majority of Denoy's stack. I'm pretty interested to see what he does here. As the second shortest stack, you kind of want to bust Sid, but you don't want to be the person to have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think...
Ooh, many red cards, but not the reds that Denoy wanted or needed. And a nice double up for Ari Tribbiani there. Up over 5.4 lakhs in chips.
Yeah, and Sid's always been able to manage the short stack pretty well. I mean, his timing has been impeccable at the final tables we've done commentary for. Of course, he's ended up at the top of the pile with a couple of victories. But yeah, he just, he's a patient player. He knows how to manage his stack and find the right spots. And one of those guys that even when he has 10 big blinds, you can never really count him out of the tournament because he can always rebuild. So I'm sure that's a little disappointing. That puts all the pressure right back on Denoy as the short stack. And now it's Sid's turn with the king-queen seated.
Yes, nice, pretty hands all the way through. But I think no matter what Ari Triviani puts in there, I think that should shut the hand down.
Yeah, not enough chips behind to really get too busy with the floating or any shenanigans. So yeah, Ari, Sid chipping up nicely in those last two hands.
Well, I can see a lot of our viewers have tuned into this live stream once again. Welcome to everyone. And yes, clearly there is an anticipation for the contest question that we're going to put out there. In fact, a couple of commenters have actually just put in their Spartan ID without even putting in the answer because, hey, we've not even asked the question. So interesting pull on the trigger. We'll get to the contest question. No worries.
And Denoy here with the suited king in the big blind, riding the short stack. I think he's going to be pretty happy to peel here and see if he connects with this flop. Kind of knowing that he doesn't have any fold equity pre-flop. He's like 6, 7 big blinds, but 1.5 big blinds more is good enough. Wow, he does just go with it pre.
Oh,
well, he knew something we didn't, I guess. Yeah.
There you go. A double up for Denoy and from the chip leader himself. So that's not really going to hurt Vivek Singh's stack all that much. But Denoy, now some breathing room with that double up.
What do you think about that, Sam? Do you think you just peel, or I mean, it seems kind of odd to just go with that?
No, I definitely just peel. I don't see any merits for unless I have a supersonic read that I've got him crushed and I'm getting it in for value. I definitely think 6 suited, probably, especially with the price you're getting, too strong to just fold. You can definitely just peel, hit any piece of the flop and go with it. Or yeah, I definitely wouldn't fold pre, but I would lean on the side of. Not lean on the side. I think that's a flat all day long.
Yeah, I mean, you just have no real fold equity there. Reshoving 7 big blinds, you're just going to get called every single time. And super optimistic to think that king 6 suited is ahead for value there versus a raise from that position. So a little bit of a strange play, but he did hit the king on the board. He probably would have doubled had he just peeled anyways. Probably would have been faced an all-in on the flop after flopping top pair, but he does get the double. And we're seeing some of the short stacks doubling up right away. Definitely going to make the dynamic a little more interesting when somebody like Sid comes in with 10 big blinds and then immediately doubles and wins a pot, and then the guy he doubles through doubles as well. Yeah, it's definitely going to change the dynamic of the table. So we'll be watching to see how Denoy and the other short stack sort of adapt to this. Denoy with the nice ace jack on 15 big blinds. The button could see an all-in here. Could also just see a raise. And I do think I like the min raise a little bit more than just jamming. Allows your opponent to defend some weaker hands. Ace jack's just pretty strong, and you can definitely have the big blind want to shove hands over your raise that they might not call a shove with. So inducing a little action there, and I think given the chip distribution, that's just fine. I don't know if you guys know, but Sid was actually on my WSOP team as well. I did a team with Dirty, Abhinav Iyer, and Sid, the four of us, and the tag team.
The worst players on the Indian scene,
really?
who Kevin McPhee picked up for his team at the WSOP. Terrible talents, terrible.
We went pretty deep too. It was fun. It was real buzz going deep in a tournament with those guys again after our success in Goa. You know.
When was that in? Was that the last one in 2019? When was the last one?
God, when was the last one? It feels like it's been so long. Yeah, it was. I believe the last time they ran the tag team event. We all teamed up, and I was actually the person that busted us. I lost a coin flip with just a few tables left, actually, for Ace King to Jacks for a lot of chips that we would have had a nice sweat on our hands had I won that coin flip.
I think the last team event the last team event that I played, I sort of snuck in the back door with I think Eric Seidel and Dan Smith. It was all they'd put out a post looking for someone that was willing to sort of give, I think, all the winnings to charity. And I thought this is an ideal attempt to win a bracelet. And I had to leave the next day as well. So I played my one round, and then I left, and sort of sweated it till the.
Well, Dan Smith and Eric Seidel are the poorer for it, Sam. Let me just say that. Pocket fours for KasolHeights, bombing it up to 60K. And an interesting Jack 10 making the call. Hello.
I feel like I do flop sets a lot with fours. I don't know. Maybe I'm just superstitious about the 4-4-4, but nice flop for KasolHeights. I could see checking back here. I could see betting. It's just kind of a board that might favor the big blind defend a bit more, so you could see them get spicy on a board like this. So all options available here for KasolHeights. I think the kid, with a couple of overcards and a backdoor diamond, could maybe consider doing something spicy here if faced with a continuation bet. But it's just so hard to make moves as the second chip leader with all these short stacks around. I think I'd prefer kind of a traditional approach, just playing your hands for value and not trying to get too fancy. But let's see what the kid does.
It's a pretty hefty bet, but the kid decides that that's a bit too much for him to go on for. Folding on that hand. And as you can see, we've mentioned the fact that there's plenty of talent at this 6-max table of the high roller. You can see the badges next to all of these players, save Daniel 0617. Everyone else has done has got a pretty big title under their belt. The M stands for the millionaire, of course, at Spartan, the IOPC, and the FTS badge that Ari Tribbiani is sporting is for that main event title that he won in the last edition. So plenty of experience, plenty of deep finishes and titles. And these players have been at these spotlight tables before. They felt the pressure of, the big arena and the spotlight of it. So unless someone really has a brain fart, I think these guys are going to fight it tooth and nail all the way to the end. And yes, I'm getting some grief in the comments about the contest. So here it is. Let's ask you. Hello, there is a poker-related contest question. Fantastic. So let's get back to poker questions here in the contest. And this one is going to test your knowledge of poker history. Now, according to some historians, the 4 suits in a deck of cards represent the 4 classes of medieval society. Now, here's the contest question. What do the spades represent amongst the 4 suits? If you know the right answer, then post it as a comment on the stream with your Spartan Poker ID, and you can win one of 5 tickets that we're giving away to Flight 1J of the Feast tournament. That's a 1 crore guarantee tournament, and that'll be played on the 19th of September at 4 p.m. So make sure that you get your answers in there. What does the spades represent amongst the 4 suits from the 4 classes of medieval society? And now back to the action. With Denoy getting 2 pair.
Denoy running good from the big blind when Kasol's been opening. And I was about to say, I quite like that really small bet, giving him room to escape the minimum if.
Yeah, I think the small bet on the Jack-Jack board's pretty standard. It's a little more wet with the 8 coordinated with one of the jacks, but it's kind of one of those boards where they're really far ahead or really far behind, so you can size down, knowing the equities are a little hot cold there. Hard for the 8 to just check rip it in there, I think, and he's forced to just check call, and now KasolHeights has outdrawn him on the turn with that ace, and wow. Well, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, that move's taken all of us back a little bit.
I mean, it definitely looks like super mega strong, but it's, you know, shoving for an extra what?
I mean, I know KasolHeights has an ace, but I don't know how Denoy is just knowing that he doesn't have a jack here as well. I mean, he's raised pre-flop, bet twice. I'm not a big fan of this play. You're kind of in the dark here. Your opponent's range is still including all the nutted hands. So this is kind of closing your eyes and praying that your opponent doesn't have a jack when they certainly could, and that they're capable enough to fold an ace, which he does. So it does work for Denoy, but I don't think I'm a fan of that play.
Well, Denoy managing to pull off that bluff there, but I think, like I mentioned earlier, there's so much talent at this table, and everyone's definitely played each other a whole bunch. So all of that coming into play here, not just the hand in question, probably the reason why Kasol did what he did.
Yeah, just you're really in the dark there. You're kind of, I mean, you really just have no clue if they have a jack or if they're even capable of folding an ace. I feel like sometimes I can know what my opponent has, make the play, and then they just still call me, you know. So
and especially since you don't, I mean, the shove is so, you know, it's like another 7 bigs or something like that, and it's not even like, even if you're going to make that play, that you know there's that much pressure on Kasol to actually make the call. So.
And even with the queen in your hand, you're kind of blocking some of the potential bluff hands that KasolHeights might have. If you had a queen 10 that turned a double gutter that wanted to bet again, or like a king queen that just decided to bet twice to rep the ace, you have the queen of hearts in your hand, so you're blocking a lot of those double barrels. So it just feels like your opponent's either always going to have an ace or a jack, and you just don't even know if they're going to fold an ace. But it is very hard, to be fair, for an ace to stand any sort of pressure there. It does look, the way you played your hand, like you have a jack, but you just have no certainty that your opponent doesn't have the jack themselves. So,
exactly.
But it did work out for Denoy. Very, very perceptive play. Certainly, it must be some history. I mean, they're playing short-handed. You know, we're playing 4 and 4, leading up to the final table, 4 and 3, leading up to the 6-handed final table. So these players are going to have a bunch of history from previous hands that we're not privy to. So that might have come into play there. And checkmate, riding below 10 big blinds here. Definitely playing conservative. Hasn't got really dealt any hands, but is going to need to make some moves here soon.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to find something to get it within the next sort of round. And
KasolHeights opening for 3x from the small blind with 9-3 suited. This has been kind of a pet peeve of mine through these tournaments, is watching people torch money from the small blind by raising really terrible suited hands. It's just purely ICM play, knowing that Daniel is going to have a hard time flat calling a wide range of hands. But you see they both get a piece of this flop. KasolHeights flopping the bottom pair, and Daniel with the open ender. No spade or no clubs or diamonds in his hand, so you're not going to feel too comfortable if faced with turn bet here. KasolHeights does check it, so Daniel has a decision whether or not to try to semi-bluff with his drawing hand, which he does. I think I like this a little bit more than just taking the free equity. You have 8 pure outs and some overcards. KasolHeights was checking here to check call, control the size of the pot. Now we're going to have an interesting decision here on the river. Daniel certainly is going to know that his jack high is no good. A lot of draws missed, and his opponent has checked him 3 times, so I could definitely see a bluff here, and I'm just not sure if it's going to get through the 3 when everything misses.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fairly quick call.
And it's on the small size as well, so
he made it kind of
really
cheap with that bet almost.
Yeah, I think if you're going to try to make a play for the pot, a little bit bigger would be better, but the value does, the value bet does get through, value bet bluff, I should say, does get through. KasolHeights worried that he's just going to be paying off too often there, that it looks like he would be check calling too much, and makes the incorrect laydown. Daniel with the value bet bluff on the river with the jack high gets it through. And now we have checkmate with the exact hand he's been looking for. Ace queen suited under the gun with just under 10 big blinds. Tough spot here for Denoy. I think he cannot call it off with the king high with the whole table act behind him. He does fold, and I think checkmate will just get this one through. Yeah, I'm really not a big fan of calling it off with king queen. I know a lot of people just, you're priced in, this and that, but especially at a final table, but even in other stages of the tournament, you know, if I'm opening and somebody's ripping a lot of big blinds in my face, I better have a really good reason to be calling with king queen high. I don't know, Sam, what are your takes on with king queen if you just flick it in there every once in a while when somebody reshoves on you? But I like to play a little more snug with that king queen off.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, it's, you know, it's those hands, especially when you know people are, you know, people's, or at least you assume people are shoving. When they are shoving, they're shoving with the sort of top range, and I'd much rather. I mean, I wouldn't call, but I'd much rather be calling off with something like Jack 10 suited or whatever. I mean, you're going to be dominated a good amount of the time, you know, when you're pulling off with king queen, and yeah, king queen, king jack. They're really pretty hands, queen jack as well, and they're so tempting to sort of appease the gambler in you, I guess. But yeah, you need to exercise discipline.
Bit surprising there at Daniel folding those pocket fours.
Yeah, I mean, he should be opening that hand for sure. But it's left us with this interesting blind versus blind confrontation, which is always the storylines I like to look at. I think that gives a lot of insight to how the players are thinking and how they approach the game. It's how they approach these situations. We see the kid limping and checkmate just checking back the queen 10 suited. I think he could have probably piled that. But ace high board, the lead and the float, and queen 10's backdoored the nuts. It's a pretty nice feeling, especially when it gives the kid a little bit of disguised second pair here. I think he's probably going to think the king. There's good reason to think the king is good here, given the action. Checkmate likely would have shoved any ace pre-flop. No action on the turn. Yeah, and he's going to go for some value here with his river pair of kings and see the bad news.
Yeah, you might actually think that this 48K bet is pretty good to take it down, but little does he know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Checkmate picked up a well-disguised double gutter on the turn, and instead of trying to take down the pot with queen high, just check back, took the free equity, and banking it on the river.
A lot of players would probably just shove here on the end, and this is a cheeky raise, offering 3-1. I really like the size of this bet. I mean, if you're not going to shove, I like.
Well, as we wait
maybe
for...
mixed in a snap min raise every once in a while, make it look like a misclick.
Yeah, that's another. I mean, the kid must be there saying, like, what do you honestly have? Like, all those hands that you're raising the river with here surely would have gone in pre-flop, you know, once the kid has limped to you. So just...
Wow. He saw it. And the
Solid.
kid makes a nice fold there. And well, let's... time to, with that solid fold, let's get a solid commentator into the box as well. I'm pleased to announce that we are going to get Mahima Walia Das joining us in commentary. She's, of course, someone who's been quite regularly playing on the domestic circuit and plenty of titles and deep finishes for this player. I believe that, well, ace-king for checkmate, even as we invite Mahima Walia Das onto the live stream here. Mahima, welcome. Good to have you here.
Hey, Peter. Thanks. Good to be back.
And just like that, I think I should go in search of the doom switch. So I will see all of you, gentlemen and lady, in just a little while.
Wow, and Denoy falling for it. Took the bait, rips it in with the king six off. Blind versus blind. And checkmate with the huge double. Very critical double for him. And yeah, Denoy, I don't know about that spot. King six, a little aggressive. Just trying to attack the weakness in his opponent and just ran right into it. So fortunate for Denoy there. Familiar face at these final tables. And on the leaderboard as well. Isn't Denoy on the leaderboard? I mean, things are spicing up with our leaderboard, getting down to the last few events here. I'm sure all these players are trying to get up positions to climb up that leaderboard as well.
Yeah. I think Denoy is well in the mix in terms of the leaderboard, and just talking about these tempting hands.
As far as I know, checkmate, he's going to make the most of his double up here.
Yeah, I don't think I'm very familiar with his game.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, as tempting as this sort of hand is, when you've got someone sitting on 3 big blinds, do you just, I don't know, do you just fold all the time to this? I mean, unless you're... I mean, it's worked out because, I mean, he's turned top pair. But pre-flop, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when somebody has 3 big blinds, it's pretty tough to want to get in the mix too much. You want to wait for them to bust. But I have a suspicion that some of these players don't care necessarily about the difference between 5th and 6th place money as much as they want to position themselves for the win at this point. Yeah. KasolHeights has slipped a little bit, still has a lot of big blinds, but I mean, if one of these other players, like Checkmate, like the Kid, can scrape something together, they can contest him in a shorthanded game. So I think there is some merit to just trying to just play your hands right now. And yes, there's a 3 big blind stack, but you know, I'm trying to focus on making the top 3 where the big money is at, and not necessarily caring so much between 5th and 6th. I think once we get to this point, I'm just like, you know, we're playing the 6 max. I'm not going to let anybody exploit me. I play my hands, play my game. And sure, you got to be mindful of the other stacks, but you don't want to have it deviate from your strategy too much.
Pretty interesting, even from an ICM perspective for most of these players. Even Ari Tribbiani can come back anytime, and he's one of the most solid players, as we all know. So I'd love to see him on the FT.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Sid's gonna be pretty solid here, waiting for Denoy to bust. Like I said before, he really knows how to pick his spots. He doesn't step out of line all too much. I mean, once he gets chips, he's certainly capable of doing that, but just very aware of his situation. And, you know, Denoy, I could see pretty good argument for going here. I mean, you got a few hands left before you got to get your chips in the middle. King Jack suited with all the dead money in is going to be certainly good enough. He should be shoving here and getting called by the Kid. Not a big pot, but certainly an important one for Denoy.
Yeah, but his chances are slim here. A king and a jack is negated by Daniel. He doesn't know that though.
Yeah. And Sid also folded a jack, so yeah, it's
Oh. Even he's taken a stab at this.
The action has been reopened, right? So the Kid could have shoved there. And Denoy is going to be liking that flop, thinking he has flopped the second nut flush draw. Of course, we know that he is dead to the flush draw of the Kid. And with all these kings and jacks dead, it's not looking very good for Denoy. He'll need to offsuit king or jack just to chop the pot with Daniel. So a real rough spot for him to be in. Certainly can't blame him for ripping it in there with the king jack suited. Just kind of a bad setup for him.
Well, you can hit a deuce now as well. So some light at the end of the tunnel to chop it 3-way.
Some chopportunities.
Ouch. He's gonna curse his luck right now.
Yeah, you got to be thinking, oh, this is great unless they have an 8. Yeah, you probably don't have an 8. My flush is good here. And I think he's going to be not too excited to see any action on the river. I mean, you got to assume somebody's got a full house or they put a bet in here or a flush. But yeah, just a gross spot. So Denoy is going to be out in 6th, our first elimination so far. So a nice slow pace so far. But congratulations to Denoy on another nice run and some more leaderboard points. So I guess that means the pressure is back on Sid Karya. So yes. RH Tribbiani coming in with, we're sub 20 big blinds, but like 16 or 17 or 18 big blinds. So he's going to be looking for some reshove spots. He's pretty aware about he's going to be paying attention to who's opening too wide really looking to target them with that stack size. When you have between 15 and 20 big blinds, that should be your play, is to try not open as many pots, really build up that squeezer vig, you know, and that build up that image so that you can get maximum fold equity on your reshoves for these chip lead on these chip leaders that are opening too much. But it's kind of a tough spot for him here with the chip leader on his left. He doesn't really have a great target for these reshoves, as Checkmate and the kid and Daniel, I mean, they should all be playing like pretty snug right now. So rough spot, just the way the chips are for Sid here. KasolHeights is just going to be raising a bunch here, and as he should. It's going to be so hard for these guys to defend.
Yeah, KasolHeights are quite unpredictable, I think, as much as I've seen. You know, just a few hands ago, folding the fours in a much more legitimate spot for him to be opening, and then just, you know, opening up the ace-3 offsuit. So yeah, I think I'd be. Yeah, I think I'd find Kasol quite a tricky opponent to be playing against.
I think he's just going to focus on stacking up right now. Unlikely to get busted before at least 3 more people go out. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only, what, like 5 million chips in play or something? He's got well over half.
Yeah, nearly half the chips in play.
I would like to see a lead here from Checkmate. I think if you're going to be playing a limp the small blind strategy, you need to be leading a fair amount of boards. You know, especially hands that, I mean, you're basically just giving up here. And I kind of like the way that the 6 and the 9 of spades correlate with this board. You know, it's just a hand you can't check call with, but as the pre-flop limper, you have a fair amount of traps in the small blind. So I think I would have liked to see a lead there from Checkmate, but it doesn't really matter, as he does turn second pair with the 9-high flush draw, and that's going to be good enough to take it down. It's really going to be the storyline. I always like to pay attention to this stuff as the final table gets shorthanded. How are these people coming in from the small blind? Are they going to be coming in with raises with a wide range of hands? Are they going to be limping and trapping and controlling pots? To me, that's always kind of shows how the player thinks about the game, what their approach is going to be to the final table. You know, you see somebody raising deuce 4 suited, 9-3 suited from the small, you know they're going to be getting after it and applying pressure to everybody, and that they're going to be capable of bluffs. You see somebody limping and trapping in the small blind, you know that they're going to be a little more situationally and ICM aware. So that kind of stuff is always something I'm paying attention to. Even if I'm on the table and I don't get to see the cards, I just want to see, like, you know, how often are these people raising? How often are they limping in? And then, you know, that can kind of clue you into, like, who are the guys that need to be bluff catching later? Who are the guys that I should be bluffing later? And, you know, like my old poker mentor says, they just call the game paying attention. If you pay attention enough and see how these people start approaching hands, and you get some insight to their game that can be critical when you're engaged in a hand with them down the line.
Absolutely. And I think all of these guys have played with each other enough number of times to know what each of them is capable of. All the names are pretty famous in the circuit.
Looks like this pot is likely to just get checked down. Both players just desperate to get to showdown with with their pocket pairs. Interesting.
What does the story say that you've been checking all the way and then river is when you decide to bet?
Yeah, I mean, he could have some Jack X that maybe wanted to check the turn that then he wants to bet. I think he just realized that fours, if checked again, was probably never winning there. So just deciding to turn it into a bluff, sensing a bit of weakness, and Daniel, who checked back the turn, therefore capping his range a bit. And yeah, kind of a creative play there. I kind of like that. You know, that's just recognizing your fours are not good and just trying your best to keep pressure on these guys. Once Daniel's checked back the turn, that really takes away a lot of the top end hands, you know, for him. And a wear play there from KasolHeights, just sensing the weakness. And sometimes when you're chip leader, you know, yeah, you want to have a hand make sense. You want to tell a story. Sometimes when you're a chip leader, you can just pose a question. You know, you don't necessarily have to have the most coherent story. You can just use the power of those chips to bully the players, and we see him doing that there.
And I feel like it almost felt like that's exactly the sort of hand that he was actually targeting. You know, that he knew his fours were not good, but it's you probably would have heard from Daniel well before the river if he'd had any of that top end. So yeah, it felt like he was targeting those exact hands. You know, sixes through nines.
Daniel could probably have attempted a c-bet or a delayed c-bet on the turn there to take that down. Oh.
Yeah, I think I would have. I mean, I think that's an option. I think also, given that Castle checked the turn, he was also probably trying to get to showdown as cheaply as possible, and I guess just hoping that the river was going to check as well, but didn't quite go to plan.
And Castle opening the ace-9 off, my favorite hand on the button. And Kid is going to be kind of forced to just defend the sixes here with the other short stacks around. Can't make any overly creative, just rip in his face. The ace-9 is going to outflop him here. It's kind of an awkward spot for the sixes, the under pair to the board and the gut shot to the dummy end of the straight. I don't think I'm going to like seeing it continue here. You could just be drawing very slim against something like Jack-10 or 9-Jack or something like that. And even the ace-9 here has him in pretty bad shape. So the Kid forced to tread carefully with the pair here. And
he does choose to call.
Interesting card, though. Because now you know you're never winning as the sixes. But is your opponent going to be showing up the queen here enough?
That probably changes certain things for Kasol also. Difficult to continue here.
Yeah, so I was going to say, if this goes check, that might actually open the door for the Kid to, you know, while he would have felt that he may have had the best hand. I mean, this gives him an opportunity to actually bluff. And
he definitely is one of those who's capable of pulling that off.
Yeah, it's a tough spot because once you would think that the way KasolHeights has been playing, that he would just continue with the queen on the turn. And probably once he checks back is just trying to get to showdown with any piece that he flopped. So I think if the Kid had thought that through, he might have been able to arrive at the decision to turn his sixes into a bluff there. Of course, you just don't know if it's going to work. If KasolHeights could just still call you with his pair. And, you know, sacrificing your chip position at this point when, you know, really checkmate's on your heels and you got Daniel and Ari Tribbiani like out chip pretty well. Maybe it doesn't hurt to take a conservative approach and just, even if you know you're going to lose, then just wave the white flag and show your sixes. I didn't turn this into a bluff. KasolHeights should pay attention there because that was a reasonable spot to try to bluff, and you got to see that he chose not to bluff with the sixes, so that's going to give some insight that he's playing a little more conservative, waiting for these other players to bust out before him.
Sid picking up a nice Sid shoving hand if he gets opened on.
Yeah, I think it's not much to see here in this hand. Nobody's going to act.
Yeah, likely just a limp, a shove, and a fold. But you can see the kid open folding 10-7 off on the button. We've certainly seen other players want to mix it up and continue applying pressure when they can, opening pretty wide range on the button. So yet again, another example of just showing how the kid is trying to value his chips quite a bit here, you know, and not expose himself to reshoves, which is like Sid's game. Like Sid's really good at keeping it short, keeping a short stack alive by spotting some good reshove spots. So the kid, I think, should be playing a little bit more aware on the button. I wouldn't say conservative necessarily, but when you are raising into a guy with about 13 bigs, pretty awkward because that's about his last chance to get fold equity on his reshoves. So and Sid's gonna know his reshoving range is near perfect in my opinion. So ooh, a limp. Let's see some cards, huh? I like the limp. Everybody's sick of not seeing some flops. Checkmate, limping the queen 8 suited on the button. Very pretty playable hand.
Sid cheekily has the best of it, but
I'm not sure how much is he going to trust onto that deuce there.
yeah, exactly. I think once you limp from the button, if it's checked for you, you should be betting pretty much most of the time.
Yeah,
I'd like to see a small bet here. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's what I was saying, that he'll still have a decent playable stack, even if for some reason Sid decides to take this down. Yeah. Everyone on the FT is pretty disciplined today. I quite like that.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be fireworks all around. You know, sometimes that's how these, you know, high rollers go, especially players that have, you know, kind of, I don't want to assume, but they add more weight to the prestige of winning than necessarily the prize money itself. But Sid now with tens.
Yeah, and he decides to just min raise here, giving a little room for his opponents to try to play back at him with worse hands. Kind of the idea being if you just rip it in with tens, they might fold some smaller pairs to the shove. But if you just open, you allow them to shove like deuces and threes and fours, and try to, you know, get you to fold something. But of course, you'd have them nutted. So just keeping his opponent's range as wide as possible. A good way to play a value hand like tens. We do see also the big blind defending one of my least favorite hands, the ace-6 off. I think it is my least favorite poker hand. I really, really dislike that hand.
I sense some story behind that.
Well, we were talking about it on stream the other day. It's the hand from Casino Royale where the sheaf calls a 3-bet out of position, makes a full house versus straight flush against James Bond, and then dies afterwards. So the movie's cluing you in, folks. Ace-6 off is terrible hand, the worst ace-X. You're always getting in trouble with it. and it doesn't make any straights. Just I really, really dislike that hand. If I can, I try to avoid it at any cost. But of course, reasonable in this spot. Defending your big blind for a single bet with any ace high is going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah, the kid would have easily folded to his jam. So exactly the kind of hand he wanted to get called from, even for a blind.
Yeah.
I think Daniel flatting the king queen here is kind of an interesting play as well. I think with how much KasolHeights has been opening, we've seen Jack 9 off, 9-3 suited in there on a couple different spots. I think I would have preferred just to shove. We see that this time he would have been called by the eights, and just electing to take the flop on the button I think is fine with king queen. King queen, a good hand to flat with because you keep your opponent's range open as wide as possible. If he's opening queen 10s and queen 9 suiteds and stuff like that, then you're going to be able to dominate him on flops and still control your stack a bit. We see here if he would have shoved, he would have got called and been out of the tournament. So, but you just don't have that much wiggle room when you get shallow like this. So I think I prefer doing the sort of reshove strategy. But if I would have done that, I would be out the door. So Daniel, the pot does get checked down. KasolHeights wins it with the eights, and Daniel lives to fight another day.
We might see a cheeky limp this time.
Oh. He's never going to call with that. He's just fooling around, taking his time.
Yeah, he's not going to call, but I think Sam touched on a good question there. When you're constructing your ranges from the small blind in these spots, in these shorthanded games, you need to have some traps in there. And I think just ripping it in with this hand as strong as ace jack, when your opponent can, if you limp, they can check back tons of worse hands. And if you limp, they can now shove many more hands than they could have called with. I do think that's a good hand to try to include into your trapping range there. I'm just kind of a fan personally of limping and controlling the stack from the small blind. And when I do that, I don't want to just only be doing that with like suited hands or connecting hands. I want to have some top end hands in there too. Because there's a lot of king highs there in Sid's spot that he might not call with, but he'll shove versus a limp, and you're gonna inducing actions against those hands is very good for you. So I think that would have been a nice spot to limp, but he does. I mean, you can never blame somebody for just trying to win a pot when the chips are so valuable to final table. So he does rip it in, and next hand is rewarded with a flopping of flush. Nice flop for him.
All the pay jumps today are pretty massive. I think another reason why all of these guys are taking it slow.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a fair bit of action, but nothing's got too crazy. It's been quite cautious, if I use the word, play post flop. We haven't seen too many people getting out of line, too many crazy moves. We've still got people like Checkmate here. He's not afraid to get involved in the mix. And yeah, I mean, the gear's been steady on 2 or 3 so far. So
yeah, it's an interesting point about the pay jumps because it seemed like it was pretty, to me, like it was pretty top heavy, to be honest. Like the difference between second and third was a lot bigger than the difference between like third and fourth. So it's definitely one thing you always want to keep an eye out for. You know, like when I'm playing a live tournament, I'm always watching the tournament clock. I'm always looking at the pay jump. So I'm always trying to be aware of these things. I know some people don't want to pay attention to that and just focus on their game when they're in the tournament. But these factors matter quite a bit, and it is pretty top heavy for the top two. So if it was me in my shoes here, like playing this final table, I would really be trying to play for the top two spots. And right now, KasolHeights and the Kid look like they have the best chance to get in that heads-up match. Checkmate's made some moves to get up the leaderboard here, but Daniel and Ari Tribbiani, both these guys are getting pretty short. They really need to make something work here. Daniel picking up the aces in this spot, great spot for him, but just the Kid seemed to be sticking and moving quite well at this final table. His timing has been pretty good, avoiding these disasters. And despite being on the wrong side of the deck a couple times, he's been able to maintain his chip stack pretty well.
Probably also the 3-bet from Daniel there could have been a jam. It looked pretty strong with aces 3-betting.
Yeah, it did, and it kind of almost makes you feel like his hand is face up. You know, once he doesn't shove, you're like, everybody always shoves the spot. Why is this guy not shoving now? And it's you know, it can be kind of a sneaky move to do when you're reshoving a little light. You know, like make a re-raise instead of going all in, because it does look like you have aces. But this time he did have the aces, and I think I would prefer just shoving there to try not to expose how strong your hand is. Make it look like a little more tilty, you know. Yeah. But yeah, definitely an interesting non-all-in. Wow, he's really slow playing these kings. So Checkmate limps in with the two black kings here. Daniel and the Kid come along from the blinds, and 996, and he's elected to check again. King's an interesting hand to limp with. I actually, when constructing limping ranges, this is one of the hands I like to construct around, because when you have two kings in your hand, you're not blocking any of the ace-X on the rest of the table. So when you have some other shallow stacks, and you're limping in with a balanced range, maybe some small pairs, maybe some, you know, queen X suiteds, maybe some big hands like kings. You know, they don't know if you're limping in just to see a flop or if you're limping in strong, and could definitely take the bait with a lot of ace-X hands, which you're not blocking. So king's kind of one of those things. I started playing around with limping kings ages ago, and it works so well because there's so many times that when there's shallow stacks behind, they just jam it in with like ace whatever. that really what started me like trying to construct more advanced limping ranges so I could be more balanced in it. But king's one of my favorite hands to limp with.
The limp and even the flop check is going to get some chips for checkmate, so he's going to get paid for that. So.
It's a gross spot here for the queen 8.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, and being in the Kid's spot, I think you've got a hand where there's definitely an element of suspicion coming in from checkmate having limped under the gun. And if you're not already beaten by a stronger queen, you're only going to make those legitimate hands that he may have limped with, Jack King suited, Jack 10, you're only going to make them fold anyway. So I also like this check pop control / bluff inducer on the river, and I don't love it, but yeah, I'm not folding.
Yeah, that's just too small of a bet to fold to. Kings gets paid. Probably got maximum value of that hand by limping, to be honest. If he had raised pre-flop and c-bet, it would have been a little bit smaller of a pot. But it's tough though to construct those limping hands really well. Like when you just raise, or you know, and then all of a sudden you limp out of nowhere at a final table. You know, there should be red alarms going off for the rest of the people. Like, hey, this guy might have a monster because he's just never limped before. So you need to actually find some other hands to try to mix in there. You know, some Jack 9 suited, some hands that you're just like, you can't really call a 3-bet with, but maybe you could call a raise that flop pretty well. Small pairs could also be in there. But if you're only just limping the top end hands, then it can be a little bit easier to play against you. So it's kind of like going down the rabbit hole. Like, how am I going to construct this range so that people don't just know what I'm doing all the time? And that can be a difficult task.
Do you like to sort of make a point of trying to get to showdown when you've limped hands that could be considered, you know, just so that people are aware that, or start thinking that that's exactly the sort of hands you're limping in with, just to deceive a bit more later on down the line? Or
I mean, it certainly could have come into play in that hand with checkmate, right? He limps the kings, and instead of electing to go for a huge value on the river, he just goes for the value that gets him called, and now he shows his kings and collects the pot and shows everybody, hey, I limped kings. Now you need to be scared. Now he can start mixing it up with more limps, you know? And it's a little bit of a leveling game. That's why I like the limping game, especially relevant when there's ICM considerations, because it just allows you to control your stack so much better. And instead of putting in 2 big blinds and then folding to shoves, you can limp, maybe see some flops, keep your opponent's range wide, and really a lot of interesting things happen once the limping game is open. But you know, it's just kind of non-traditional in your thinking. When we're playing poker and learning poker from the very beginning, we're always like, oh, raise is the easiest way to win the hand, you know? But that doesn't mean that raising is always necessarily the best way to extract maximum value. There can be optimal plays where you do have a limping range built into that optimal strategy. So just a tough thing to navigate, you know. Nothing that I would recommend limping to a novice player, which is most often when you see limps, is like novice players just want to see a flop or whatever. But you can there's some limping in advanced poker as well that I think needs to be picked up a little bit more by the average person. Here we see Sid finding a hand to shove with. He's been very patient, just as we expected, picking his spots very carefully. Finally gets the ace-9 blind versus blind for about 9 bigs. Does shove and take down the pot. And this looks like another interesting spot here. Sid with 10.5 bigs and KasolHeights with ace-8 off in the small blind. Going to be a very close spot for him. When you have a hand like king queen suited, it just feels so nice and snuggly, like a little security blanket, you know, like you're just like, I don't care what happens. I got king queen suited, you know, if you call me, I don't care, you know. It's it's a nice hand. It's a hand where, you know, you don't necessarily want to be called, but if you do, you're just not that worried. You're willing to gamble and let the cards run. So yeah.
Sid.
Damn. Well, this final table got a whole lot less pretty, and Sid jams the button. KasolHeights, as expected, calls with the ace-8, and a pretty nice draw for Sid, flopping the gut shot to the nuts, backdoor flush draw on 2 overs, but couldn't connect with any piece of it on the turn or river, and will be out in 5th place. So more chips to KasolHeights, who now has half the chips in play. So this should be his game to win. Now we see checkmate opening up the limping range. 8-7 off is not necessarily a hand I'd want to have in there. But yeah, he knows that he showed down kings last time, so just wanting to play a hand. Tries to limp it in, and KasolHeights right there with the punishment. 3.5 times big blind. Raise the ace-9. It's going to be impossible for checkmate to call. Does fold. But yeah, trying to construct some limping ranges here. I don't know if 8-7 off is quite the hand you want to do it with. If you're limping that, you're probably over limping. I think there's better hands to choose with, but he was trying to play off that dynamic of, hey, I limp strong. You know?
He probably took your suggestion and worked towards that. KasolHeights playing pretty solid. He also now has the stack to maybe put pressure on each of these players. He's also getting good cards. So all the three things in his favor.
Yeah. He can definitely open up here. I mean, we saw him play a few hands early on and then make a couple of, I don't know, tight-ish folds and lose a fair few chips early on. And I don't know if that scuppered his plans, but now definitely gained a bit more momentum. And I mean, it's displaying it here now. I don't think this is quite going to work. But yeah, definitely his tournament to lose, and he should be really applying maximum pressure moving forward.
Yeah, we do see checkmate limping the ace-jack this time. Different stack dynamic, about 30 big was effective. He's going to induce a lot of raises from garbage hands against KasolHeights. In fact, I think 9-7 off could be a check back. The more connecting hands, you want to check back a little higher frequency and try to raise a little more polarized range against the limps, so some more garbage hands and nutted hands. So yeah, a good trap there with the ace-jack. We were talking about that before. You know, KasolHeights probably over raising versus limps there, and he's able to set the trap, pick up an extra 3.5 bigs, and nice takedown for checkmate. He's put a little distance between him and the kid now, sitting comfortably in second.
KasolHeights is in the mood to play every hand now.
Yeah, I mean, I think
this could get him in trouble. I think 12 blinds he can give this up. Effective 10 now. Not sure if Kasol's going to call him off or not.
I think
big mistake too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And given that Daniel has been pretty tight the last couple of rounds, yeah.
Yeah, we had a hand earlier where Kasol opened, and I think he got shoved off for about 7 bigs, and he pretty much snap folded a very similar hand. So yeah, it's...
Yeah, I think we'll see some fireworks here. Definitely the kid's going to be opening on the button. I guess the question is, does KasolHeights just try to shut him out of the pot, knowing that he's well ahead of his button opening range? Just rip the ace-9 suited in. Ace-9 suited flops super well, so I think there is some merit to defending and keeping the range of your opponent as wide as possible, which we do see him do here. If he would have shoved pre, he would have folded out exactly the type of hand that he wanted to play against post-flop, you know? So that's kind of the idea behind defending these hands. You keep the 9Xs that would fold and the ace-Xs that you're dominating in the range, and plus all the lower spade draws and stuff like that. So this is a very nice hand to defend. I know a lot of people can be tempted to just rip it in here just for the value of the ace-9. But I do like having this kind of stuff in my big blind defend range. I want to have some ace-X there, so I'm not just getting exploited on every ace-X board that comes out. So, wow. And I like this raise quite a bit, actually. This is not a good enough hand to check call with. It still has plenty of equity. It has some cards that can turn straight draws, backdoor spades, and an overcard. So probably one of the strongest hands that you would be folding on a flop to bet. And instead, then can be a very nice bluffing hand because it would be one of the top folding hands that you would have. So KasolHeights reading that situation pretty well and check raising. realizing the kid was probably over c-betting and winning a pretty nice pot there. So extracting a little more value than if he would have just shoved pre-flop by getting that extra continuation bet.
And at that stack, even the flat call keeps his hand pretty disguised, gives him the opportunity to actually 3-bet and take a couple of blinds extra. Good luck to Daniel.
Oh,
Wow.
If he decides to call again.
Yeah, very strange hands. I would have just shoved this pre, right?
yeah.
Sam?
I was just about to say I would have just shoved pre, but I was kind of caught in my tracks by the fact that he's played it perfectly and flopped a full house. But yeah, no, I certainly wouldn't be flatting this pre-flop. And I mean, it is what it is. Checked all the way down. I definitely would have. I would have at least led the river when it looked like it was getting to showdown. I don't want my players, especially, I don't want my opponents, especially four-handed at a high roller, seeing that I'm flatting with tens when I've got sort of 10 bigs behind. So if I'm not going to, get any value at all, just bet it so that it doesn't go to showdown.
Even I didn't quite understand how that hand went.
Yeah.
People are going to be very aware of what Daniel's doing now. Pretty tight play.
Yeah, Daniel has been extremely conservative, kind of trying to let these other people play the action. I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of this strategy, to be honest. Sid had been playing pretty snug as the short stack, so it wasn't like being overly conservative is going to be that big of a benefit. And with those, I mean, if the prize is really big at the top two positions, I think I'd like to see a little more aggressive play. If you're just calling hands like tens, then you're probably not reshoving enough in general. So.
Oh. Cheeky 3 on the river.
Yeah, it does go check, check. Ace high good enough for showdown value, but the river pair of threes will win it.
Kasol's kept his stack constant. It's circulating between the other three.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see if Daniel, surely he can't be playing that tight that he won't open this on the button.
Yep. He's going to open, I think, yeah.
Checkmate's got a fine hand to peel. Unfortunately for him, he'll be in trouble if he flops the queen.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Did you do that or did Peter do that?
Commentators, cause
joint effort.
If he flops the queen, everybody cue the queen, bring it out. All right.
And yeah,
Gross spot for the queen 10 here. I mean, I could see all the options. You want to protect your hand a little bit here, but if you do shove and get called, then probably going to be behind. maybe this is enough to slow both players down and have this get to showdown.
Oh, he decides to lead.
Yeah, and kind of picking his own size to get to showdown here. It's going to freeze. It's going to be so hard for Daniel to ever raise this spot. And yeah, this is going to... Wow, spade on the river, though. Pretty interesting card. I think both players would be happy just for it to go check, check.
I think a checkmate knows by now that if he has to win this, he'll need to bet.
Well, the action has slowed down a bit here four-handed, so I'm going to take a break for a bit, see if I can go find that Doom switch, and I will rejoin you two in a bit. So thank you for having me in the meantime.
Enjoy.
See you soon.
Ciao for now. Yeah, and so these stacks are pretty much evened out for the other three players.
Yes, anybody could take it down to heads up from here. Pretty interesting. Sorry, please go on.
No, I was just going to say it's going to be interesting to see who bites first, and yeah, it's anybody's game in terms of getting to heads up. But one assumes KasolHeights will be heads up, but we saw a massive swingy 3-4-handed battle yesterday, and anything can really happen. So,
who's your pick here, given the play that you've seen in the, for the last hour to get to heads up?
I think. I mean, it's tough because Daniel has been playing very tight and solid, and for that reason, he could get to heads up. I think it would be between the kid and checkmate. I'll go with the kid. I think I go. Yeah, I mean, it might change after this hand, but I'm gonna say checkmate in KasolHeights. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I'd probably vote for checkmate here. I've quite liked his play style. Of course, there have been spots where it didn't quite work out well for him, but I like how he's taking the game forward.
This will be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Although I think KasolHeights is a really strong player, I also think that I don't know if he will bluff this river. He may just give up on the end, but
it'll also depend on the sizing, I think. Don't expect checkmate to call a big bet, yeah. His tourney life at risk here.
Yeah.
Given how the play went, what would you do at his in his spot here?
In checkmate spot?
Yeah.
It's really tough. I mean, there are many draws out there. It's blind on blind. I probably would have folded on the turn. Now, having called the turn and come to the river, nothing's really changed.
Yeah.
So that would literally come down to, at the time, how I feel. You know, I'll either make the hero call or just let it go. It's a really tough spot there. Really good move by Kasol, applying maximum pressure there.
Yeah.
And Wow, four legitimate hands here.
This could be an interesting hand. All the three stacks who are relatively smaller have got decent playable hands in a four-handed play.
Here. With the ace-9. I mean, it's Kevin's favourite ace, so he'd probably...
Ace-9 suit.
It's a limping strategy, this time with the ace-2 suited. And the kid's been in this spot before, so I'm sure he's going to be very suspicious. I wonder if the kid will peel one. I was going to say the kid is probably suspicious, but a nice price to peel one and try and outdraw what is likely a strong hand.
Yeah.
Given what we've seen of checkmate limping.
Tough spot for checkmate also here. Yeah, at that stack depth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's thinking he's probably got the best hand for sure, but if he gets... I'd quite like to see another flat call here by the kid. Given the fact that checkmate knows and the kid knows that checkmate's been limping these strong hands, you're really transmitting that you've got something really strong to be able to now shove on the turn against that under the gun limper. And checkmate can definitely get away from this. The only thing you could legitimately be beating that isn't already made is something like 9-10 of spades, 7-9 of spades, these sorts of hands. And I think, given what's happened previous, I would have liked the kid to have given checkmate the feeling that he was really in control and had the hand on lockdown to extract another bet on the river. And yeah, he's managed to make a really good fold there. A fold once in a while is okay. Blind on blind. So checkmate, I guess, going to go for the limp again. I think Castle will be quite happy just to check this, and that's interesting flop, checkmate, flopping second pair. KasolHeights won't be going anywhere with middle pair and bottom pair, sorry, and a flush draw. So with the pot size bet, if I'm in KasolHeights position, with the hand not quite on lockdown, but with the outs that I've got and some potential fold equity, I'm just going to get the whole lot in here. I think yeah, that was surprising.
I didn't expect KasolHeights to fold that quickly and easily there.
Yeah. Aside from the fact that you can apply maximum pressure in terms of ICM, you have such a strong hand, you're probably not dead. You've got the 10 of diamonds to back up as well.
This could be an interesting spot between Daniel and the kid.
Yeah, I mean, this is a legitimate blind on blind setup. Can't see anything happening other than this all going in free. Given Daniel plays quite on the tight side, I think he might opt for the open shove as opposed to, oh, wow, I mean, he's gone for the trap. I felt like he was more trying to preserve his position and rather than get, yeah, I would expect him to shove there, but the kid is going to do that for him, and this should be a fairly easy snap call. And all but locked up the hand on the flop, and then the kid turned the up and down, and this is just adding insult to injury. The kid now has the jacks, but with
how
more than a big blind.
How he would have wished for the sand in the previous and the same cards.
Exactly.
Well, just to let you know, folks know that the Doom switch is working. It's a bit slow today, but it is working. And perhaps Kevin McPhee might try his hand at pressing a few of those buttons there to see if we can, well, it's not like we're prompting any of these eliminations, but good to be back on the stream once again. And in case you all were wondering, yes, it's the festive season in India, so we've got... and they're all gathering outside Mahima's house to celebrate. So apologies for that slight sonic disturbance. But we're back to the action here. And yes, it's time to announce the contest winners. We'd asked you, what does spades represent in the medieval times society, the class of society that it represents? And the answer is, of course, military. And we've got a few winners. We've got 5 winners, in fact, who have got a ticket into FTS's Feast tournament, the 1 Crore Guarantee Feast tournament, and a ticket into day 1J on the 19th of September at 4 p.m. And our winners are, well, let's take a look at, well, and that all in. Well, clearly it's fun and games in in and outside Mahima's residence with I think one of those fireworks just did a little number there, but we're back with the proper visual now. So here are our winners of that first contest question. Kiran Pawar, who's playing with the ID Pacha. We've got Puneet Gowda playing as Devil King 86. Mahesh Randeep playing as Mahesh VR. And Ravindra Jr. or Ravindra JR playing as RJ Venom. And last but not the least, Guriya Kumari playing as Lucky_Buster. Congratulations to all the winners. And we hope you do well in that feast tournament.
Time for a double up for a checkmate. I don't want to see another bust out so soon.
Well, that's all in the hands of Kevin McPhee right now.
You're back here. Probably something you say could change.
I'm not saying anything. And even by virtue of just saying what I just did, perhaps something may have shifted in the force.
Yeah, it did.
And that's just really unfortunate for checkmate, because he was so close to laddering the extra spot, but ace jack was a bit too strong.
And our latest bust out, Apratim Sharma playing as checkmate, finishing in 4th place for 935,000 rupees. An excellent outcome for being at this final table. And now down to 3 players. It's been a blazingly fast final table, as you can see. We've been at this action for a little over 90 minutes now, and clearly this is a high roller final table. The stacks have been deep. The players been relatively cautious, I would say. And players know that those kind of pay jumps that our commentators were speaking about, that definitely comes into play with when you're playing these kind of high binds and high prizes, of course, on this final table. The kid with the ace queen of spades.
Time for a double up for the kid, hopefully. And no.
Well,
oh yes.
There it is.
Interesting.
That's a nice 4th street there. Just squeaking out of that one, the kid. Doubling up to a little over 500,000 now in chips. And with that, we're going to let Sam take a swing at that doom switch and allow him to get a cup of coffee as well. So we'll see Sam Razavi in a few minutes.
See you, Sam.
और अब जो हमारे international commentators जा चुके हैं, we can get back to speaking in Hindi so that we don't make them feel a little uncomfortable due to the difference in languages. But Mahima, so far, the play that we've been seeing thus far, KasolHeights really having that grip on that chip lead at this final table. I don't think he's done anything too disruptive, I would say, at this final table. Any particular hand that you felt that, as chip leader, he could have done better at, or has it been pretty much cruise mode for him?
I think it's been pretty much smooth for him. He's taken the right spots. Usko pata hai kab kya karna hai, and with that kind of stack, he's trying to open and 3-bet. Most of the hands also makes sense. So I quite like the aggressive play style he's picked up. And he knows when to let go. Even if he calls or gets called in certain spots, he's got plenty of stack left behind to make it to the heads up and change the game back from there.
बिल्कुल. और अगर इन्होंने डैनियल्स को भी डबल अप दिया और द किड को भी डबल अप दिया, he still has plenty of chips left over, as Mahima said, to still make a go of it at this final table. But going by what we've seen, मुझे ऐसा लगता नहीं है कि KasolHeights, that's Vivek Singh, उनके मन में ऐसा कुछ भी funny business करने का इरादा है. So we'll see how it goes. In this one though, he's hit bottom pair, but Daniel having the edge with his pocket sevens on this flop.
Yeah, tough for Kasol to let go of a pair, and even Daniel's got a decent hand here. He knows that having exactly a jack is quite hard for Kasol, so Yeah, थोड़ा गिफ्ट तो मिलेगा अभी
Of
डैनियल को.
course. One peel is good to at least get on this. I also like the fact, Mehma, that ये short stack जो खेल रहे हैं, at no point did, at least for the time that I've been seeing the game, ऐसा लगा नहीं कि these guys want to let it go. Everyone's really, even when they're down to like a few big blinds, they're still hanging in there. They're still trying to make a go of it. Yes, they've gotten lucky on a couple of occasions, but still making sure that they're in it to win it. So, good play all round by these final three.
Absolutely, and the prize pool justifies that. So
Yep.
you got to take it slow. Worth the patience for sure.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. Normalize Hindi commentary in poker is one comment. Sir, अगर वो होता तो we are, of course, the second largest populous country in the world. Maybe Hindi commentary becomes one of those things that we'll see sooner rather than later at the World Series, perhaps. But yes, we can always hope कि ऐसा हो. इंडियंस तो जीत ही रहे हैं ब्रेसलेट वगैरह, सो क्यों नहीं हिंदी कमेंट्री, क्यों नहीं? अगर ब्रेसलेट विनर्स हैं तो फिर हिंदी कमेंट्री भी होगा एट सम पॉइंट इन टाइम. Nine ten suited for KasolHeights. Nice hand for the kid as well.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly I'm not like a great accomplished player or anything, but these suited connectors, there's just something nice about them. J10 being popular with so many players. But I think that's too heavy a bet for Kasol to even consider making a call.
Yeah, had that been 7-8 blinds, 6-7 blinds, it was an easy call.
Yep.
Here, you know for a fact that there could be hands which are where you're dominated. So slightly tough. Probably this one is one of the spots where KasolHeights could pay off. King Jack suited is too strong to fold, in my opinion.
Yeah, in three-way action especially. अगर ये हाथ नहीं खेलोगे तो कौन से हाथ खेलोगे? But it depends, of course, on what the kid decides to do with his stack. A shove might, well, this is definitely getting a call at least, I would think, from the King Jack.
Absolutely. Maybe a 3-bet also, given Kasol's sizing. However, open at that stack size is a little suspicious from what the kid could have.
Yeah, Kasol's definitely looking at putting in more chips there.
Daniel's going to like this. Let the two battle it out. Maybe him take away the kid.
As someone
Ouch.
said, बैठने के पैसे, but certainly अभी उठ चुका है the kid from his seat क्योंकि trip aces on that flop for the kid, and certainly something that Kasol will be very mindful of क्योंकि pre-flop raise किया the kid ने, and of course that should trigger some kind of alarms in Kasol's head. Nonetheless, it's a very tiny bet. Oh my God.
Now he's not going to believe his story.
Well, that's actually a really good card for the kid. You might think that that would end the action, but there's every chance that now it could be considered a bluff if the kid decides to do something. And kyun na ho, we'll be very interested to see what the kid puts out there in the form of a bet.
Wow. Now a jam is also getting called off.
Oh boy, this is like
probably
Yeah, please.
Just what's happened, what would have actually happened अगर pre-flop भी kid ने all in किया होता, तो same value मिलता. Ace King turn and river ने kid को पूरा value दे दिया. Otherwise, he would have lost on to a lot of chips that could have come his way in addition, which will come now.
I can see words like harsh and brutal in the comments. Yes, yes, indeed. It's quite a brutal board. So I think we'd be very curious to see what happens. हाँ, हमें भी हिंदी पसंद है, लेकिन अब क्या करें? हमारे बाहर गांव के कमेंटेटर्स हैं तो उनका भी थोड़ा लिहाज करना पड़ता है. So as long as this Desi Fest is happening between myself and Mahima, we'll try and keep the action going in Hindi for as much as we can. लेकिन फिलहाल the kid really thinking about उनको क्या bet करना चाहिए यहाँ पे, क्योंकि that's a very very massive board and he's praying, Mahima, I'm guessing, कि कुछ ना कुछ तो हो कसौल के हाथ में.
And जिस तरह से एक्शन गया है कसौल के पास कुछ तो है.
There you go. And that was a nice
Nice
spot
hand.
for the kid. Very well played. Took his time and put in that bet of 3 odd lakhs. Very nicely
And
done.
absolutely back in the game with a little over 20 blinds now.
Yeah, at this stage, I think we've reached that point जहाँ पे ये stacks में कुछ ज़्यादा फर्क है नहीं. 2.7 million for KasolHeights. And वैसे लगेगा कि काफ़ी gap है between Daniel and the kid stack, लेकिन एक double up and Kasol can actually then become the short stack. So, well, this is how it goes.
And 3-handed अभी थोड़ा ऐसा action भी expected है, किसी को double up मिलना. You'll see a lot of pre-flop hands probably going forward.
That is true. And I feel the way these stacks are at, शायद एक hand over hand situation में ही हमारे next eliminations हो सकते हैं. And it doesn't have to be like we've got a really strong hand. Kid के पास 2 kings हैं, लेकिन ace-6 also quite a strong hand in two-way play. So we could see some action on this pre-flop. Ooh. I like that. Wherever Kevin McPhee is, he is grinning at that action क्योंकि वो 3-4 दिनों से बोल रहे हैं कि people are not slow playing enough. और finally with kings एक flat call हुआ यहाँ पे from the small blind by the kid. और खुशी का माहौल 1.8 का रेस. Certainly we should see.
Expected था कसौल से, but I think he'll also let go. अगर यहाँ पर kid flat करता है, he'll get some sense कि आगे क्या होने वाला है.
Yes, no matter what. I think अगर raise भी हुआ हो या flat भी हुआ हो, there will be some flags going up in Kasol's head that he needs to be a little wary here. And there you go.
Wow.
Good chances
Ab
that
Kasol chose
good chances that is the end of the hand, and it is. It is. Thank you. We appreciate all the the comments, the pro comments about our Hindi commentary. But you know, being a Bombay resident myself, मेरी हिंदी कुछ खास नहीं है, so I apologize. There is no Shuddh Hindi that's going to happen, but we'll try and make do as much as we can. Thank you for the appreciation, though. We appreciate that, and of course the viewership that all of you are bringing on to these live streams of ours. A couple of questions about our contests. So the contest questions are put out there. We select all the correct answers, and they are randomly chosen the prize winners. So you know, there's no particular thing कि आप पहले आंसर करोगे तो आपको टिकट मिलेगा, ऐसा बिल्कुल कुछ भी नहीं है. It's as random as it possibly can get. Kasoli Tigers from Koi Mil Gaya Jadoo. I'm guessing that's what our production people are hinting at us from for that particular ID. So yes, I think pretty interesting flop for Daniel and for the kid as well. And speaking of which, I think we're going to try and get you another contest question. Let's see if we've got that in our bag. Wow.
Perfect timing to take back the chip lead.
Yes,
the kid's not going to believe his aces right here and not give up to a min-raise, of course. What do you expect here, Peter? Yeah. Oh.
Well, I expect some chips going the way of Kasol now that I see that flop. बहुत ही ज़्यादा, well, kid के दिमाग में तो वो सोच रहे हैं कि चलो ये flop का एक piece मिल चुका है, लेकिन he has no idea कि उनके सामने bullets हैं. But we'll see just how lucrative he makes it. Yeah, that's a nice bet. About a third of the pot. Pretty
And
well
just
disguised.
frequency से KasolHeights hands open कर रहा है. He's going to get quite a lot of value.
थोड़ा तो action definitely मिलेगा because people just tend not to believe, but that's a very, very, very
the game
interesting
is
card.
changed now, yeah.
I mean, this is what you call complete tightrope walk here for both the players. Nut flush draw for KasolHeights, the straight for the kid. Boy, this should be an exciting river. No one's going anywhere, folks. Picture abhi baki hai, mere dosto. So yes, we will see this hand go to at least. Well, it's certainly going to the river, and we just see just how much of a bet Kasol wants to put in there.
With the nut blocker, Kasol could try and be a little creative, but yeah, chooses the right play.
Nice and easy is the mantra of KasolHeights. And that 9 on the river certainly didn't do the kid any favors. लेकिन draw तो अच्छा था, sweat सबको मिला. But वही river card पे sweat सूख चुका है. And with 2 pairs, aces and 9s, KasolHeights has a firm grip on this hand.
And अभी chip leader से हमारा gap भी एकदम कम हो गया है, the kid का. Even Daniel's close enough now, so it could be anybody's game from here.
It could be certainly anyone's game. I think Kasol decide कर रहे हैं कि वो कितना extract कर सकते हैं the kid से, but I think anything more than perhaps a min raise over this 1.8, and even then, it's just the one pair that's there. The board is quite wet in that sense. शायद 4 लाख chips से ज़्यादा उन्हें ना मिले, but stranger things have happened, so देखते हैं कसौल क्या बैट करते हैं. Yes, I apologize. I caught my mistake in time. It is a straight that he's got. And well, there you go. And now, as Mahima mentioned, that gap between those stacks reducing with that straight, bringing the pot the kid's way, it's become really, really close now. Anyone can win this. It's really too close to call at this moment in time. And we see a lot of people predicting who can win this title in the comments. We certainly hope that, well, we're certainly in for a lot of action. It's already been close to, I think, 2 hours since the tournament began. And we've seen some very, very fascinating poker action. Yes, I did misread the board, and that's exactly why I'm sitting here in the commentary booth and not playing at these tables. पता नहीं कितनी बैंड बज जाती थी अगर ऐसे माइंडसेट में अगर पोकर खेलना होता तो. So yes, I think I have the easiest job of it all, sitting here and doing commentary. And remember, folks, 25.5 lakhs up top. It's a huge amount of money. And the pressure that goes with playing these kind of high-stakes tables, certainly you need to have your mind and, well, even your body in the right shape to undergo these long hours at the tables. Some interesting hands all around.
It's such a patient play throughout by most of these guys.
Yeah, I think
hats off.
I think the time bank has been used very, very judiciously by all of these players. No doubt about it.
Oh, wow.
Nice turn card for KasolHeights.
Daniel's not going to like that as much,
No, he
but
won't.
doesn't really have a lot of choice.
True. That river could help him out, though. We're still waiting to see what KasolHeights plans to do with that flush. Once again, a third of that pot approximately going in there. Yeah, Daniel just had to call there. Wahan pe just way too much in the pot, too much value for him not to peel to see that fifth street.
Uh, the 9 also changes some things for Daniel, probably saves him some more chips there.
It does. Again, a very, very tempting bet from KasolHeights. अभी सेट के साथ बंदा सोचने वाला है. I think this timer is going to take it into the time bank as well. This is not going to be an easy call by any means, or an easy fold by any means. Nicely done. I mean, you couldn't have faulted Daniel almost if he had made that call. It was, even though with all those little alarm bells all over the place, but making the right decision at the end and saving himself some chips there. And KasolHeights once
Yeah,
again
absolutely.
inching towards that 3 million chip mark. But well played by both players.
Yeah, it was just a very sick spot. Hard luck to Daniel there.
Yep. Okay, let's get that second contest question out of the way as this hand continues. So in our previous question, we'd asked you what class of society, well, in medieval society, did the spades represent? And of course, plenty of you answered right by saying the military. And so we're going to continue with that theme. And in the vein of that, what do the clubs represent in medieval society? What did the clubs represent in medieval society? That's the question, the second contest question. Get your answers into the streams with your Spartan Poker ID. And if you are one of the lucky 5 winners, then you will get a ticket into the Feast Tournament's Day 1J, which happens on the 19th. That's tomorrow evening at 4 p.m. So make sure you get your answers in there along with your Spartan Poker ID. And you could grab a piece of that 1 crore guaranteed prize pool. In the meantime, our chip leader with Ace Queen getting a gutter. तो मैं ये एक बात कहना चाहता हूँ, हमारे कॉन्टेस्ट आंसर्स जो आ रहे हैं, a lot of people are explaining the entire thing and we appreciate that, but you have to realize अगर हम पिक कर रहे हैं तो हमको मालूम है आंसर क्या है और उसका explanation भी मालूम है. So while we do appreciate all of those things, you don't need to write a long answer there. Just the right answer and your Spartan Poker ID will do just fine. But make sure you get it in there because you could be a part of that feast tournament. Another club on the board for both these players. And the kid gets there with that flush. Baby flush though. And check there because the 6 isn't the most heaviest of cards at the same time when it's just 2 players. Did Kasol bet on the last one? He didn't, I believe. Well, there you go. Once again, Kasol picking up a nice hand But this time Daniel behind him having the king queen, so we should see a little bit of an action here. Yep. A min raise to 1.4. Have you played with any of our finalists in the recent times, Mahima? Right. क्योंकि हम भारत में रहते हैं तो obviously त्योहारें और फटाके and मिठाई, send us मिठाई if you're watching the stream. ये तो है ही. So we're going to give a tiny little audio break to Mahima as a nice procession passes right outside her home. In the meantime, though, I believe we can bring in Sam Razavi in a few minutes. I think he's done the best that he could with the Doom Switch, so we'll see if we can get him on a little bit sooner. Puneet, I see your question, buddy. I think the best thing to do there would be to drop a mail to support@spartanpoker.com with that question, and they'll be happy to answer. Or if you are on Facebook, then you can tag Simran Fernandez, and she will answer that question for you. Clearly 10,000 वाली लड़ी चल रही है बाहर महिमा के घर के बाहर. So we're not able to hear her just quite yet, but त्योहारों का समय है. Ganesh Chaturthi, of course, is in its final stages of completion. So all across India, there's a lot of celebrations for this. Also the reason why we generally don't host anything during Diwali, because, well, no one would hear anything. And there you go. Nice king queen, and no doubt that he's going to at least call here to see that flop, if not make a raise. Well, I do believe we have Kevin McPhee available to join us. Let's see if we can get production to loop him in. Kevin, are you with us?
I am, and glad to be back, right back in it here with KasolHeights and the kid battling, as it should be. Kid's flopped a pretty nice piece of this, 2 overcards into the flush draw. KasolHeights with the naked ace of hearts is going to c-bet. And when pots are getting pretty big now, the limits have gone up, and there is a tension building here. And really the storyline is, can the kid stand up to KasolHeights and get this to be an interesting heads-up match?
बिल्कुल Kevin, आपने सही कहा. And clearly Kevin's like, what are you talking about, Peter?
I would say my Hindi isn't the best, unfortunately.
Just agreeing with what you said, Kevin. Me and Mahima were on a bit of a Hindi roll, just to try and mix that into our commentary. So some of those little aftershocks.
Seems good. You guys get a commentary team out to the World Series one of these years to do commentary in Hindi.
It's very, very interesting that you say that, Kevin, because there's a few comments, the few commenters who mentioned in the chat that, why don't we get Hindi commentary as part of the whole thing? And I was like, yeah, we're a billion strong people, and I'm sure when there's enough repping this country at the World Series or any other international tournament, I'm sure we can hope to see some of that as well.
Yeah, it certainly seems like there's more and more Indian players coming over every year for the World Series. Seems like there's a huge wave of new players coming up that are getting coached by more experienced players and trying to get their feet wet in the live arena. And the World Series is the best spot for that. Interesting spot here. The kid just checks down his king queen, allows KasolHeights to win the pot with ace high. So kind of a brutal for him to not win that hand with such a powerful draw. I would have liked to see a little bit of aggression on the turn there with so much equity. I guess the worry is that you're going to have to bet fold it, but I just don't think KasolHeights can get out of line there on the turn. So I would have liked to I've seen the kid bet. And then we have the same hand for the kid again. King, Queen of Hearts. Such a pretty hand. Great hand to defend, but really all options are available here. And yeah, we do see him shove. And yeah, that's really going to be the storyline here is the KasolHeights and Daniel and the kid. As this progresses, the kid and KasolHeights are just going to be battling as Daniel continues to hide behind a rock. It's tough to hide behind a rock in these 6-max tournaments, but Daniel's been doing it. He's been pretty solid so far. Been rewarded with some nice pay jumps.
Yeah, he's been quietly going about his business, or not any business at all. Betne ke paise, as we say in one of these Hindi broadcasts. That's laddering up because of the ICM, and Daniel's done that pretty well for himself.
Yeah, and we're going to see the kid open here with the King Queen, or the King Jack from the small blind. KasolHeights just electing to flat here in his flop top set. Kid has the backdoor flush draw and the gut shot to the nuts. So pretty little bit of something for everybody on this flop. KasolHeights obviously has the nuts. Interesting that he didn't elect to jam there. I guess he just wanted to extract some more value from his queens, and it's going to work here. So I think I'd like to see a flat call again. Of course, you run the danger of allowing the kid to hit his 10 on the turn. But it's just, you have such a hammerlock on the hand with top set. There's really no reason to raise, and you're not going to get any action if you do raise, blocking all the top pairs. So a nice flat call. I've been hoping to see some more slow plays at this final table. And
I had mentioned that a few hands ago when Mahima and myself had seen a flat call from the kid, in fact, with pocket kings. And we were just saying that wherever Kevin McPhee is, he's feeling a little bit better right now because someone's finally slow played a big hand, and he did get rewarded for it. So that was a good thing to see.
Yeah, and KasolHeights, again, electing to just call on the turn. There's a little more reason for protection with the 4 spades out there. I don't think you're too worried about your opponent having a flush. And I think the kid could be just going for the lot here. The ace is a huge scare card. He's got to assume he's up against, he's just up against one single flat call here. So you might think he's up against Queen X. Could be reason to shove here, but he does shut it down. I think there's probably some ace highs that call flop, and then the ace of spades also wants to call the turn. So the ace being kind of a scare card for the kid as well. Just thinking that maybe KasolHeights had that ace of spades. And I think we are going to see KasolHeights shove this river, maybe even a smaller bet to try to get some value, but it's not going to get called. King High is going to find the fold here.
There you go. Rightly called by Kevin McPhee. And I'll take this time to say goodbye to Mahima Walia Das. Thank you so much to her for joining us this panel. She's facing some audio issues, but it was lovely to have her here with us during this broadcast. Thank you so much, Mahima. We'll see you on the next one. I do believe we've got Sam Razavi as well coming back into the stream. Sam, are you with us?
I'm with you. Is my audio with you?
Yes, it is. That too is with us.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. I'm back. And just like that, I brought the Doom Switch with me. Let's go.
I think the Doom Switch needs a little bit of oiling because these guys have been playing it very snug for a while now, despite having a few biggish hands go here and there.
Yeah, well, Daniel does just secure the double up there, sucking out on the ace-jack suited with ace-7. Pretty unavoidable spot, though. 10 big blinds, blind versus blind. Going to be sticking it in with any ace. And hits the 7 on the flop, so he's going to survive. And now, KasolHeights looked like he had this on lockdown, but all it takes is one bad beat and lose some traction, and it's kind of back to where he was before. Now Daniel really has some chips to hide behind now to continue this extremely conservative approach. Now the kid is going to really, it's going to be on him to get in there and mix it up. I think he won't be too shy. We do see him taking a stab with the 4 high. I mean, I guess if you feel like you can't win the pot any other way, you may as well bet.
Yep.
Knowing that 4 high has no showdown value, does bet, gets a pair to fold. Pair with a gut shot too. So pretty, yet again, conservative approach from Daniel.
Yeah, but it served him well thus far.
That. Yeah, it has.
So I think I don't think he sees anything wrong with letting a pair like that go. It's a small pair, so I'm guessing if it's brought him all the way into 3-way, then it might just take him into 2-way, and then, well, the title for all you know.
Yeah, Daniel's conservative play paying off, and the kid, I noticed just before I left the stream, was down to like a couple of big blinds.
Yeah, they were really short at a point, yeah.
Or at that. Can't be any. You say surely there can't be any reason to bet the flop unless.
Now he turns a double gut shot to either the queen or the 8 to make a straight. Kind of really awkward spot check calling out of position with jack high. If you're going to check call, a bet fold for the same price gives you some fold equity, and it's just so hard to like play this hand out of position. But yeah, we do see him lead now that he's picked up some equity, and this doesn't really make too much sense.
And Castle, I was going to say KasolHeights hasn't, at least in a few hands I saw recently, hasn't really been afraid of, often you see players sort of just raise on impulse because there's a draw out there or whatever. I've seen him, I like the flat call on the turn. Now, interestingly, the kid probably going to bet for value or...
Yeah, he has rivered enough of it to think that he's probably ahead unless his opponent has slow played a king. But targeting a 7 or a 9 here, decides to try to go for a little bit of value. And I think we should see a raise from KasolHeights, who has slow played enough. It does kind of feel like the kid has something like this, something that floated out of position, picked up some equity, led with it, and then just blocker betting the river. But we see KasolHeights not even raise. I guess worried about potential straights, maybe a better king, maybe feels he just is never going to get called unless it's by a better hand. Pretty standard shove with the ace-8, not a hand that flops super well. In spots like this where I was recommending limping the ace-jack, it's really ace-jack flops so much better than ace-8 off ace-8. Really doesn't flop all that well. It's hard to navigate post-flops. You're happy just ripping it in with the plus EV decision, taking down the pot. Probably going to see the same thing here from Daniel, who's been dealt the ace-8 this time.
Yeah.
He has played extremely conservative to this point, though, so I could see him limping, I guess, some here. Wow, he just open folds ace-8. That is far too conservative. Wow. Come on, Daniel, get in there. Take your socks and shoes off and throw them in the pot. That was a slam dunk spot.
Wow.
Yeah, that is far too conservative. You're you're really doing yourself a disservice if you're folding spots like that. That's wow.
Well, maybe
Are
you
they
could take a
buddies or
page.
something?
Yeah, they should take like a page out of the kids' book. But yep.
Wow. Yeah, I don't.
Now chip leader.
This is the thing, because you got the impression he's playing conservative in terms of looking for those ladder spots. And that's why earlier on it was the kid and Daniel had actually got a setup hand heads up. Daniel got the nines in the small, the kid ace jack in the big, and I thought Daniel, when you're playing that conservative, wouldn't try anything tricky, and I thought we'd just pile it in. And he actually limp trapped the nines and pulled off like 15, 20 bigs, and so then when he has the ace eight, I would have
Well, we always talk about switching gears up. Maybe Daniel switched a gear down, going by what we've seen.
I mean, it's not making. I mean, this is going to work out well for him because this is a great shove spot and the ace. Well, he's playing top there, but I mean, you choose to fold the ace eight from the small against a kid who has like 8 bigs, but now you want to go to war with the chip leader with 9 high. Like, no, I'm not sure. Or was that? I mean, I was probably too busy discussing the last hand to maybe, was it limp small blind big this hand, or surely it was raised?
I think it was raised in a call. Now the ace of spades becoming relevant on this turn card as Daniel has turn top pair, but enough equity for KasolHeights with 2 overs and the nut flush draw to continue betting here. And I would not be surprised with anything here from Daniel, to be honest.
I mean, I'm certainly not against the, calling a raise pre-flop with 9-7 of clubs. I've called a raise far worse. But I'm just saying, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But given the fact that he is playing conservative, and it looks like he's trying, at the moment, his immediate game plan is to get to heads up. Makes no sense why he'd want to tangle chip leader.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're so apprehensive to tangle with the chip leader that you're willing to fold top pair, which he does on the turn there, to a single bet, then, I mean, it's like you may as well just not even be calling pre, because, you got what you wanted. You flopped an open ender, you turned top pair, now you're just folding. So far too conservative approach by Daniel. I mean, I would urge him just to, when looking back on this final table, realize the pressure is kind of off. You've locked up a lot of money at this point, and now you can play a little more fearless as a free roll, especially when you're the short stack. There's not as many confrontations when you're folding hands for other people to get into. There's only 3 people left. So now is the time to change gears. You've been playing conservative for most of the final table. Now is time to use that image. And we do see him opening it up here with the king jack, and he's going to run right into it, the ace king of the kid. And I suspect we're going to see another fold.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kid's certainly not been shy about putting it in there, and yet another shove by the kid. Probably his 3rd shove in the last 5 or 6 hands.
Yeah, and I would probably be just shoving in Daniel's spot with a hand this strong once you're down to 11 big blinds, and he does just raise, call it off.
Oh.
So Daniel's out in 3rd, allowing the kid to hang around, passing up the clear plus EV shoving spot with the ace 8 earlier, making the big laydown with the 9-7, only to bust a couple hands later by raise, calling it off with king jack. So I think he may be a little nervous in the big spotlight here. Wasn't necessarily bringing his A game, but he should be happy with the result. 3rd place is really good in a tournament like this. It'll give him some money to take home, and you can cry yourself to sleep on your big pile of money.
That's right, and it is a big pile of money. Our latest elimination from this final table, playing as Daniel 0617, is of course Piyush Singhvi, and he takes home 11.55 lakhs for that finish. So very well played by Piyush. And down to heads up now. Let's take a quick look at all the payouts that have happened thus far In sixth position, we had Arun Kumar Singh playing as Denoy, taking home 5.9 lakhs. Siddharth Karya playing as Ari Tribbiani, finishing in fifth for 7.55 lakhs. I'll wait for a second till this hand gets done.
Yeah, interesting turn card, giving KasolHeights 2 pair. I think he wants to raise to get some protection here. There's a lot of random 1-card gut shots and a flush draw available, and it is the right play here as the kid has exactly the type of hand he wants to fold out. Second nut flush draw and a gut shot, and he does bet fold it with 1 card to come. Pretty conservative, but it's, you know, you're probably not going to get paid on the 1 card straight, and then you only have like 18% equity to hit your flush draw. So playing against a raise there would be tough with just a flush draw with 1 card to come.
And talking about the last 2 eliminations, after Siddharth Karya exited, we had Apratim Sharma playing as Checkmate, who finished in 4th place for 9.35 lakhs. And our last casualty from this final table, of course, Daniel's 0617, that's Piyush Singhvi, finishing in 3rd place for 11.55 lakhs.
Well, an 8 here would be some fireworks.
Yeah. I know that it's game over, but it's not going to get to the river in this situation. So
yeah, KasolHeights just applying maximum pressure. Pretty super wet board. He has one of the worst hands he can have in this spot with just a naked open ender, but the gut shot that would have not been good. But he does take the aggressive approach, overbetting the turn on such a wet board. I like that play. It seems like he's wanted it more this entire final table. Of course, that's easy to say when he has chips, but the kid, you know, I think he passed up some spots earlier in the final table, knowing that he could get to this spot where he's heads up. So I would like to see the kid, you know, change gears here a little bit. I mean, he's been playing pretty tight, pretty ABC, nothing too out of line. And now he's heads up exactly as he planned against the opponent he wanted to be against. Now I'd like to see him start using a little bit more aggression and playing back at KasolHeights, who has, up until this point, basically run over this final table.
yeah, and the kid definitely the sort of opponent we've seen him not afraid to, even though he's been on the losing end of a couple of hands that he's tried to sort of be really aggressive and sort of be bluffing into the almost the nuts. It's definitely the kind of player heads up that's going to could give Castle, you know, some not such an easy ride, you know. Player who busted last place. My short-term memory is like a goldfish, but he wasn't showing the same sort of propensity for aggression. So I really think the kid, you know, if he picks up some momentum, he can really hand it to KasolHeights and have a good chance of taking this down.
Yeah, it was Daniel that busted in third, and you know, because KasolHeights basically had 2 of the tighter players on his left this entire final table, so he's been able to get away with whatever he wants, you know, and you know, yield that chip stack pretty easily to get to heads up here. Yeah, it's I think it's time for the kid to really start making some moves. I mean, of course, he needs to have some hands to do it with. But KasolHeights definitely playing above the rim right now, and seems to be making all the right decisions.
The small tickler here, 1.5.
Close, very close.
Yeah, it's nice to have the 4 and the diamond in your hand. It doesn't seem like all that much, but it gives you some options for some turns to barrel. So I like having this hand in here. I might just fold pre, though. Pretty bad hand to even put a half a big blind in.
That's working out.
Yeah, 3-1 chip advantage. Seems like he's winning most of the small pots, and that's really what it comes down to when you're playing these 6-max events. You know, the action comes around a lot faster, and really just maintaining an active style that allows you to win a lot of small pots. If you continue doing that and only play big pots when you have very strong hands, then you're going to be having a winning strategy in these 6-max tournaments. It's very, very tough to just sit there and do nothing. The blinds are coming around too fast, so got to stay active.
Wow, check twice. I mean,
yeah, I would have thought at least a slight stab at that.
Yeah, 9 high, no interest, perfect. You know, turn just to put a feeler bet out there, but just given up from.
Yeah, he certainly knows 9 high is probably not going to be any good, but still not electing to bluff, and makes it tough for the kid here to really do anything when you're not even betting your strong hands. You know, you're not bluffing, you're not betting your strong hands. You're just basically taking a super passive approach to this final table and this heads-up match. KasolHeights' timing has been pretty good. He's been able to sense weakness and pounced on it, and then gave up this spot here where he could have bluffed, just kind of realizing that he doesn't need to take every spot. And the kid had checked back twice. Maybe he had some showdown value. Maybe he was trapping. But yeah, again, good timing for KasolHeights here. And we're going to see him limp the king-queen. Now, I like this quite a bit. King-queen plays super well post-flop. You're allowing all the hands you dominate to check and see a flop. The ones that a tighter player like the kid might just fold to a single raise, like queen-deuce, queen-3, king, rag hands. And now you're going to dominate. But we do see the flop go check. KasolHeights turns second pair. I don't think Kate's going to continue considering how he's been playing. Probably just going to fold bottom pair here.
Yeah, I like the way KasolHeights has just gone about his overall play. I don't think he's gotten into any sticky spot in the course of this final table. Riding that 100+ BB stack from the start all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's lost the chip lead. Came close to even, but got it right back when it mattered. And now 2 pairs for him.
I think can't be too greedy in these situations. I mean, it's another nice small bet. I mean, not going to get paid, but it's a big pulling off the outrageous bluff like we saw yesterday.
Yeah, and kind of a blockerish, very small value bet on the river. And with the jack blocker, which is blocker to the jack 10 nuts, certainly reasonable spot to think about turning your bottom pair into a bluff, but he did maintain his discipline and make the correct laydown. Would have probably been getting snapped off there. I can't imagine KasolHeights is going to fold 2 pair. Heads up.
Mid pair for Kasol.
And the kid just electing to limp and see a flop with the king 7 suited. Again, playing passively pre, allowing his opponent to check random hands in the big blind, realize some equity. King 7 suited is certainly a nice hand to see a flop with, but I would like to see the aggression turn up here a little bit for the kid at some point. I mean, you waited this whole time playing conservatively to get heads up, and now that you're here, you've been playing just as snug. So I think that the time to change gears maybe has even passed with how short we're getting. Wow, this is an interesting race.
Yeah, a bit of a.
I mean, if I'm the kid and I've got to heads up, and now I'm playing passively, I'm limping with my hands. I mean, firstly, I'm going to do when I see king 7 suited into 10, 12 big blind territory, I'm just going to shove it in. But now what he's done is elected to flat, and then after picking up a gut shot on a board that favours all the sort of range that your opponent who has a 5-1 chip lead on you is going to check back, you then opt to try to make your move then, and I mean it may work. The jack's a bit of a scare card, but doesn't make a ton of sense.
No, it really doesn't make sense, because what hands are you gonna? You're telling such a narrow story here. What hands are you gonna limp with pre, check back the flop with, and then raise turn and continue to barrel? You're basically representing some sort of 2-pair thing, but many 1-pair hands would have fired on the flop. A lot of straight draws would have fired on the flop. So things like 7-8, and which I guess is what he's trying to rep, and it does work. Yeah.
Wow.
Castle has the 8 blocker to that as well, but I mean, yeah.
Very interesting play by the kid there.
And you got to hand it to him for following through there. And once you raise turn and get called, that does. You are kind of just in the dark though, because your opponent has 2 random cards in the big blind. They bet the turn and now call to raise. You really have no information what their hand is. It could be of tons of nutted hands. It could be, it's definitely not nothing. So. I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of that play. It does take some heart to follow through on the river, though. Just realizing that jack is going to make a lot of 1-pair hands feel super uncomfortable, and that's exactly what happened. And it's a kind of a close spot for KasolHeights. I don't know what I would be doing there. I don't think I'd be folding turn, and then when your opponent who's been playing so conservatively makes a value bet sort of bluff on the river. I mean, you got to give him credit for it every once in a while. I mean, I think I would probably play it similar and just give the kid credit. If he bluffed me, he bluffed me, which of course we know he did, but KasolHeights doesn't know that.
Well, misstep turns into a nice little pot for the kid in that one. But yes, as Kevin mentioned, showing a lot of heart by putting that bet out there. And it was just the right size, and it was just the right river card. All of those things lining up. And KasolHeights deciding that he does believe the story.
Yeah. The kid may have not seen it, but we saw, especially particularly earlier on, a couple of semi-conservative laydowns by KasolHeights, and I don't know, in the absence of being aggressive pre-flop, maybe the kid should, on the back of that, try to do a bit more of what he did in the last hand, and maybe that's the key to unlocking it. Forget everything I just said. So let's see what happens. Because this is...
Well, there you go, Kevin. Finally, a slow play that we've seen after a fair while.
We might see a double slow play, though, and then we're just going to be slow playing ourselves into a snooze button here.
I was going to say, if you...
Okay.
Yeah, nothing doing. And there you have it, folks. We finally have a winner at this high roller event of the FTS. That's KasolHeights, Vivek Singh, who wins this tournament. And in second place, we've got Manish Lakotia playing as the kid who won that. We're going to take a look at two hands here that we thought were pretty interesting in the course of this final table. The first one, again, in three-way action between KasolHeights, Daniel 0617, and the kid. I have to say, everyone took their time as far as making these moves were concerned. The time banks were running well and truly across the final table.
We turns the ace of spades, isn't it?
Yeah, the squad's hand that we'd seen a little bit earlier in three-way action. And that king at the end there, Kevin, that was what basically, did the thing for the kid. It just made everything else before that seem like, okay, this guy's like bluffing. There's no way he's got the ace. Mahima and I were on commentary at that point in time. And till then, till the river card opened up, we were like, okay, this is probably not going to go the way. But once that king opened up on the river and the way the hand had been played, the kid was paid off. So that was one interesting hand where we saw quad aces.
Yeah, always nice to hit quads when you're opening off of 12.5 bigs. KasolHeights was pretty aware of what was going on in that hand. Didn't shove into the obviously strong raise pre-flop. Picked a pretty reasonable call with king high, and of course his opponent turns quads while he turns the flush draw, and then it's just a disaster river with the king there. There's no way he's getting away from it. He's lucky to give it all away and give the kid the full double up because he's just never going to fold the king there. So really dirty run out, well played by the kid, and it's always nice to see quads.
And in this second hand, we saw Daniel with the king jack of spades. And he was up against another set of spades. There was color all across the board. Everyone's playing suited cards.
Yeah, and flop trips and the queen 7 flop flush draw, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no one was in a hurry at this final table. Everyone took their time, taking it nice and easy.
It's good to see people taking their time and thinking things through, though. I mean, it's really easy to rush your decisions, especially when playing online. Forget that you have a few moments to breathe and kind of think things through. Pretty gross setup here. Daniel, easy open with the king jack suited, a super pretty hand that flops well. The kid with an interesting flat call with the ace deuce suited out of the small blind. I think that's a reasonable option. I'm probably a little more willing to just reshove in that spot in his shoes. And that allows KasolHeights to defend here with the queen 7 of clubs. And he does flop the flush draw on the jack-8 board against Daniel's trip jacks. When you're faced with a raise with these suited hands in the big blind, it's just so cheap to call. You're getting such a great price. You don't need to be winning the hand all that often to make these defends profitable. And certainly when you have suited cards in your hand, you're going to flop enough equity sometimes to make these defends work out. It's super easy to defend. He's going to be a super easy check call here with the queen high flush draw and overcard to the 8. And of course, he gets instant service on the turn with the 10 of clubs. And now this is just a gross spot for Daniel. And Daniel, maybe he got in some pretty gross spots at the beginning of the final table and got a little bit flustered as it continued because I think he played a little overly tight after this point. But this was just, a really tough spot for him. You just have your opponent leading right into you as soon as the flush gets there, repping exactly what he has. And you're pretty much forced to call and evaluate rivers, which is exactly what happens. looks so close to being a straight flush. It's almost like just squint your eyes a little bit.
Yep.
Turn that 7 of clubs into a 9 of clubs. But yeah, just once you have the 1 card straight available, and your trip jacks have just shriveled up at this point. Pretty sick feeling.
And in some ways, the 9 probably saved him on the end, because if you're not losing to a flush, maybe you can find the cycle on the end. But now there's so much more you're losing to, and yeah, maybe it actually in hindsight saved a few chips, but kind of a brutal run out really when you flop. You flop the world.
Yeah, but Daniel did find the good fold there, so it allowed him to hang around a bit longer.
That's true. His conservative play served him well, did Daniel 0617. But of course, our last 2 finalists, that's Manish Lakhotia playing as the Kid, and our winner here at the High Roller final table is, of course, Vivek Singh playing as KasolHeights. We're going to get onto a call with our winner, and we'll be back right after this short break.
This is a place where poker flows through our veins, where there's little to lose, but so much more to gain. A new opportunity to play like a beast. Come join the feast. Are you ready to unleash the beast and thrive at the feast?
This game has an element of financial risk and may be addictive. Please play responsibly and at your own risk. This game has an element of financial risk and may be addictive. Please play responsibly and at your own risk.
Welcome back to the live stream here at the final table of the High Roller. Unfortunately, we are having difficulty trying to connect with our winner, Vivek Singh, who has won this tournament playing as KasolHeights. And he, of course, outlasted Manish Lakhotia playing as the Kid in Heads Up. In the meantime, we're just going to give it a couple of more minutes to try and see if we connect with the winner. But let me just get to our commentators here. Gentlemen, your thoughts on how this final table went. Sam, your thoughts as we sort of wait for our winner.
Yeah, definitely. I was wrong in the beginning when I thought that the action was going to be sort of fast and furious. It was quite, it was quite cautious, calculated play all round. And yeah, it lasted much longer than I expected to. It's interesting how the play sort of almost seemed to slow down when we got to freehand as opposed to the aggression being ramped up. But I think that was partly down to the two players really battling to try and get heads up with the eventual winner. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty all-round really solid final table as we've been seeing the last few days anyway. So yeah, it's interesting.
Kevin, I know you were sort of rooting for Sid Karia to come through a little bit deeper than he eventually did, but very consistent performances, obviously by all of these players. In fact, did you feel that someone could have done something? I mean, better than what they did, because KasolHeights had pretty much an iron grip on most of this final table.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sid came in with only 10 big blinds, and the rest of the players were very aware of the dire situation he was in, needing to make a move. They did secure that double up pretty early, and I think everybody kind of held on to that conservative approach for a little bit longer than I liked. Especially the players who got second and third, their strategy was definitely very conservative, trying to avoid confrontations with the big stack. They were able to ladder up and put themselves in good position, but just didn't really feel like they gave themselves a fighting chance to win the heads-up match. Both players, you need, when you're building up that image of I'm tight, and then you finally get in the position where you're heads up against the opponent you want to be heads up against. Now the pressure's off. You got to your goal. Now you can play a little more fearlessly and try to take him down. But nobody really got in his way. And we saw our chip leader come in with nearly half the chips in play and just go wire to wire with complete control. And it was really a masterclass in how to navigate the big stack and how to prey upon some weaker opponents. And I mean, he was very fortunate with having great chip position, two of the tighter players immediately on his left. And, I think I would have a hard time busting Sid Karia, especially when he's holding King Queen suited. To me, I feel like I'd never win that, but he was able to beat him with the ace 8, and that was really a pivotal moment of the final table, because that should be the point where the other players start opening up their games, and it just didn't happen. Yep. So really a good display of big stack play, and that's really my takeaway from this, is how he was able to control this final table from wire to wire.
Well, there you have it, folks. Words from the wise, or at least wiser than people like me sitting here who misread the board from time to time as well. But that's it. We have come to the end of this broadcast. Unfortunately, we've not been able to connect with our winner. Okay. So production tells me that we have actually managed to connect with the winner. So we're going to just give it a minute before he gets onto a call with us. And in the meantime, though...
Hello?
And there he is. Vivek, congratulations. This is Peter from Gutshot Magazine and Spartan Poker. Congratulations on your win. Very well played, man. Vivek, are you with us? I think we're still... And of course, the internet is not doing its part in helping us connect with our winner here. We're just going to give it a few more seconds to see if we can talk to him. In the meantime, let me just go through the payouts again. Arun Kumar Singh playing as Denoy, finishing in 6th place for 5.9 lakhs. Then we had Siddharth Karia, that is, playing as Ari Tribbiani, 5th place for him, finishing for a payday of 7.55 lakhs. Then you had Apratim Sharma playing as Checkmate, 4th place for 9.35 lakhs. And Piyush Singhvi playing as Daniel 0617, 3rd for him, 11.55 lakhs. And then Manish Lakotia finishing in 2nd place for 17.6 lakhs. And our winner, who we are desperately trying to connect with on call, of course, is Vivek Singh, who was playing as KasolHeights, 25.5 lakhs. I think we are really having an issue getting in touch with him. So we're going to call it for this one. Do not resuscitate is what it is. at this point in time. But it was a whole lot of fun bringing this final table to you. Absolutely the longest time we've been on air, almost 3 hours into the broadcast. And it's time to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much to our commentators, Mahima Walia Das, Kevin McPhee, and of course, Sam Razavi, for joining us on this broadcast here at the high roller final table of the FTS. Congratulations to Vivek Singh for winning this title. And of course, well played to all the players who made the money. We'll be back with another live stream tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. So make sure you come back and catch us then. And till then, it's goodbye from all of us.
This game has an element of financial risk and may be addictive. Please play responsibly and at your own risk.